people that suffer from sex addiction, their main sort of engine behind their addiction is their deep sense of shame. And that creates a really vicious circle. Watching porn, feeling shameful about it, and because you feel shameful about it, you need to relieve yourself from that horrible sense of shame, and you will go for watching more porn. If you are a parent and you want your child to grow up with a beautiful sense of what sex is, you can't be quiet. You as a parent can't be quiet. You do have to proactively explain to the child that sex is beautiful. Otherwise, it's going to learn from the porn industry. There isn't any other way, so be proactive.
Hi, Livia.
Hello, Tammy.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
So we're at the art conference in London, and the organizers allowed us to have podcast pods out here, and so a number of the people who have podcasts, they just said, "We'll come and we'll record for you," and I've been very grateful. It's really nice. And so I texted a whole bunch of people. Everyone said yes, but I had a few spots, and Livia said yes right away. And so I'd like to start by introducing you, and you could tell people who you are and what you do.
My name is Livia Halmkan, and I'm a director of quite a small NGO in Slovakia. The NGO is focused on educating young people, so let's say kids from 13 to 18, about the purpose of intimacy. And I would say last year we heavily speak about pornography. That is our main topic, or most demanded topic from the schools. So we talk about negative effects of pornography to kids.
So they ask you what they want you to focus on?
Yeah, we do 3 topics. We started off with unplanned pregnancy. That was our first topic.
Yeah.
But as I was speaking to kids about, what the prenatal life is, what abortion is, and all that, I felt like, well, I can't just stay with this. I want to speak broadly about relationships.
Yeah, because by the time you're pregnant or deciding whether you want an abortion, there's a lot that has been not talked about.
Exactly. So I felt like, okay, I'll add to my portfolio the subjects of courting and relationship and,
good idea.
and all that, and marriage. So that was going really well. But then during those talks with kids or young people about relationships and intimacy, they just kept provoking me with little things they said about pornography. I somehow understood that they talk about pornography as their point of reference about how the sexual intimacy should look like. And that really bothered me.
Mm-hmm. Why? Why do you think that bothered you?
Because I think sexual intimacy is beautiful. It really is beautiful, and I just felt like, well, they're not gonna learn about its beauty from porn, obviously.
No, and why can't they learn it from porn?
I think porn is like a caricature.
Like a what?
Caricature.
A caricature? Yeah.
Of what sex should be. Especially one girl in a class, she said something along the lines like, well, if I go to, let's say, a bar and I see a handsome bloke, I don't see a reason I shouldn't have sex with him.
Right.
If he wants to. And if I want to, I really should. I mean, it would be really stupid of me to hold myself back. She kind of talked about it as if that would be really silly of her to not have sex. And I thought about it a lot. And I thought, well, I've never felt like that. I've never thought of sex like that. Like, it's my duty to have sex because I want it.
Yeah.
So one day
it's like having an ice cream cone. I want an ice cream cone, and if I don't have that ice cream cone right now, I'm going to miss it. So I better take advantage of it.
I just thought what they said about sexual intimacy, I thought they were talking about it as if that was some sort of meaningless transaction of pleasure.
Yeah, like a hedonistic pleasure.
Yeah. And I didn't like that. So then I started to research negative effects of pornography, or effects of pornography per se. And I added that as our third
So
topic.
what would you say were the effects of pornography?
Well, aside from the physical effects, which it's quite well spoken, much spoken about it now.
You can review it though. Yeah.
So for young men, it's mainly the erectile dysfunction.
Yeah. And why does that happen?
I guess because their brain is used to such a high sexual stimulus from pornography, from the endless. Their brain is set to view thousands of women per night.
Yeah.
Of different color, of different shape.
Yeah.
And then when they are trying to have sex with a single woman, it just doesn't work for them. They just don't get the arousal they should hopefully get.
Completely different experience.
Yeah, and how demeaning is that for that lady that is trying to be there for him that night?
Yeah.
So that's one of the main physical effects. But I think it's mainly, for me, it's the mainly emotional effects that I hear from women that live with addictive men. I tapped into a group called Anonymous Sexholics. You know, like you have the support group for different kinds of addictions.
Like Alcoholic Anonymous. Yeah.
So I most of my research I do with them.
Okay.
So like I speak
I'm
to
very
them.
familiar with that. I go to meetings in Al-Anon.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
and I think in terms of maturing, spiritually maturing program, it's spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I learned a lot from the wives of the addicts and obviously from the addicts themselves. And it's just horrible. And I wish that youngsters don't have to get that far.
And so what could parents do to stop them from finding that in the first place, I think? Because they can find it really young, if it's around. We did a big survey last year in Slovakia and Czech. So the average age when the kids see porn for the first time is 11. Right.
Yeah, I've got a 12-year-old son now. That really pains me. But what can parents do? I think, first of all, parents could try to explain to children that sex is something natural and beautiful. And it has its place.
It has its place.
It's not any time with anyone. It has its place. I thought about it the other day. Do you know Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
His book? Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, in that book, he's trying to explain that we should be looking for meaning rather than for happiness.
Right.
And if we find a meaning, then that meaning will be source of our happiness. And that meaning will carry us through even tough patches of our lives.
Right.
Which I find beautiful. And I thought about that there is a parallel to sexuality. I think what we do, we don't look for meaning in sexuality. We just look for that instant pleasure. But if you look for meaning, then that meaning of sexuality will carry you even through patches in your life when perhaps you don't feel that pleasure necessarily, you know. So, and I thought, what is the meaning of sexuality then? And I think it's just the connection to your loved one, and not to any loved one, to the one that you want to build your life with.
Yeah.
Especially because through sexuality, through sexual intercourse, can be conceived a child. So you better have sex with someone you want to stay and build your life with.
Yeah.
So this is something that parents could try to explain to kids, that sex has a meaning. It's not just orgasm tonight.
Right. You know, since we've been using the birth control pill, and we've never really talked about it very well, although there was a book written this year, Your Brain on the Birth Control Pill, that explains a lot of what goes on with women when they take it. I took it when I was 15 years old, and I didn't tell my mother. We didn't have to tell my mother. I went to the doctor and asked for the pill, and it made me depressed, and she had no idea what I was going through. She didn't know what to ask me or anything, because all of a sudden I changed from being a happy, pretty well-adapted person to a very moody person. And it took me actually quite a while to figure out that was the cause of my trouble, because it's hard to tell from the inside of it. So we don't, you know, we've changed our relationship, men's and women's relationship with sex through hormones since 1961. And
yes, when you take out the fertility out of the bigger picture of sexuality. I mean, I'm not saying that every time you have sex you should try to conceive a child. I'm not saying that, but it's, you can't separate it completely. Even with contraception, you can't separate it, because there is quite big part of contraceptions that will fail. I mean, there's a lot of women, we all know a lot of women
Yes.
who got pregnant on contraception.
Yes,
so you can't
that's right.
take it out 100%.
What do you think of having sex within marriage being the ideal, I guess?
I like that. I mean, I
Mhm.
live that.
Yeah, I love that too.
I've been with my husband for 25 years now. So it's, but it's a very high ideal, and I understand it's a very difficult to live up to.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially, like I was really lucky. I met my husband when I was 18, so I was a young lady.
Mhm.
But to sexually abstain until you marry someone has the luck to meet their partner when they're 30. So to sexually abstain from, I don't know, whenever you wake up sexually from 13 to 30, that I consider very difficult.
Yes.
But I still think the ideal is good.
Well, young women are told that career is going to sustain them. And so they think that they have time to do other things before they plan to be married and to have children. But it turns out that there's findings now that women who are 30, if they haven't had kids by then, especially if they don't have a partner by then, 50% of them will not be able to conceive, and 90% of those people will be sad about that, depressed about that. It's something that we have, as women, it's hard to, this is a reality, is that we have to get it together young.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I come back to that question, like what should parents or could parents do, apart from trying to explain to the kids that sex has a deeper meaning, and the meaning is to connect it to your loved one. I think what's important, especially now when the porn is so available, to convey to children that sex it's beautiful. It's something that you not to be ashamed of, and that it is beautiful. I mean, it's difficult because you don't want to speak to your 5-year-old like, by the way, sex is really beautiful, because you don't want to kind of make them feel like, whoa, I'm going to have sex soon. But I think that first information that children should know about sex, that sex is beautiful and it's not shameful.
Right.
Because if that information is not being told to them and parents stay quiet, their first information about sex will probably be from porn. And so their first information will be sex is something degrading, and it's shameful, and it's something you can just use your partner, or they will see sexuality as something negative and shameful.
So what made you start talking in schools? Like, what's your background that you were talking in schools to people about, or to young people about these things?
So I do have to say I am not a teacher or a psychologist. I'm originally a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And
so how did you get involved in this?
It's quite a long story, but I'll just say a very short version of it. As a designer, I had been designing school presentation for one of my clients. And I've been working on it for quite a few months. And as I was designing it, I wasn't designing the content, I was just making sure it looks pretty. But as I was working on it, I kept thinking to myself, well, I could do better presentation myself. If I had the chance to go to school, I wouldn't say what they say. I would say this or that, or over there, that. And so I just kept imagining what it would be like if I had the chance to speak to kids. And would I be able to have a good arguments to, let's say, try to explain why porn isn't good for them. And I became really obsessed with this curiosity. Like, would I stand that challenge? Would I not? And I once met a friend. I was speaking to her that I can't actually sleep because I'm so possessed with this idea. What would happen if I stood in the class? And she said, you know what? I teach in a school. Why don't you just, I'll give you the students. I'll give you 90 minutes. Just try it out. And I honestly thought that I'll just try it, and then my curiosity will be satisfied, and I'll just go back to design.
Yeah.
And I did well. I think kids liked me. But my curiosity was not satisfied. I had even more questions afterwards. And I was like, yeah, but if I said that next time,
right.
what will happen? So this is the beginning of my passion for speaking to kids. So after that, I did a few crash courses on lecturing, and soon after that, I had founded my NGO.
Now, do you work alone, or do you have a whole group?
I now finally managed to get a team of different lecturers. So it's about 10 of us.
There's 10 of you. And then do you have also a marketing team? And
well, I'm the graphic designer and
marketer. Yeah,
that's
true. That's true.
So if I need some graphic design and marketing, I just have to ask myself to do it.
And now, can people access the information that you have available?
Yeah, it's quite tricky name for English-speaking world. It's called tlakový hrniec, but I suppose maybe you can pop it in the description below the...
Yeah, you can translate it.
It's called pressure pot.
Pressure pot.
Pressure pot. You know the pot where you cook with the lid?
Yeah, that translates perfectly. Okay. Yeah. So you go to high schools, mainly, junior highs and high schools?
So kids 13 to 17, 18.
Yeah. So, well, in North America, that's junior high school. I don't know what that is here, secondary school. And do you think that you're talking more to boys than girls, or is it the same for both sexes?
I think they watch porn for different reasons, but both watch pornography. So we did that big survey on 1,700 kids. So I already said that the average age of the first contact with porn is 11, and we also asked them in the last year how often did they watch pornography.
Yeah.
So we can see that boys watch porn more often than girls, but still half of the girls watch it quite regularly. And only quarter of boys didn't watch it. We also know that a third of the kids watch porn once a week and more often. There were quite a big percentage of kids that will watch porn several times a week, some of them several times a day.
Right.
And they are youngsters, and that's going to affect them hugely.
Yeah, and this is online. Yeah. So there's no more magazines or anything. No. It's online.
Yeah. And it's nice speaking to kids about porn. I mean, it's horrible in a way, because I feel like we are being called to younger and younger children. So I don't like that, and I wish I didn't have to do this job. But once I'm in a class and I speak to kids quite openly, I really love that aspect of it, because
how do they respond to you?
Well, once they realize that I'm not going to try to shame them or trying to moralize how terrible they are, we just openly speak about what they think, how that's going to affect them. Or should I rephrase it? I don't ask them, do you watch porn, or how porn is going to affect you personally. We talk about how pornography is affecting human beings generally. Yeah? And what's quite funny is I do this little activity with them, and I walk into the class and I say, okay, all of you who think that pornography is affecting humans only positively, come to this side. Who thinks that it's only going to affect human negatively, come to this side. And if you think that both positive and negative, then come to the middle. And for a long time, I would have most of the kids in the middle. And then I will ask them, okay, so write down in the groups, all the negative and all the positive effects.
Right.
And they will then try to explain themselves. But lately, I think over the last year, I would have most of the kids in negative only group.
Is that
so
right?
That it's quite a big shift. Doesn't mean they don't watch porn.
No, these are different kids? This is the same cohort. These are different kids.
We rarely go to the same kids twice.
So it's changing within the classroom, but...
Yeah, it's across.
I
think...
Why do you think that is?
I don't really know. I need to ask them. I think it's because some sort of young popular celebrities started to speak about negative effects of pornography. But still, that doesn't mean they don't watch porn.
Right.
They just know the negative sides.
Right.
It doesn't mean they don't watch it. We know, in fact, we know from the survey, we know that they watch it quite regularly.
So say you do the survey and you have them, most of them, in this negative side. How do you introduce to them what you think will be helpful to them?
So, because I've done this job for quite a few years now, when they list the positive effects of pornography, they are the most common myths that society believe about why we can or should watch porn. So they will list like, well, it's good to watch porn because I know something about sex. You know, I haven't had sex experience, I'm a young person, and how shall I know how sex should happen? So, you know, porn is kind of, we know it's a bit weird tutorial, but at least something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they will list that as one thing. So, or another thing they will say, well, thanks to pornography, I learn more about my preferences. Or they'll say, well, it's okay to watch porn because I'm single and obviously I've got a sex drive, but you know, once I get married or once I get into a relationship, I'll obviously watch. I won't have the need. So these are the most common myths or positives, as they call it. And so for the rest of the time, me in the class, we try to break those myths. So we will sort of try to argue against that, and I think we do it quite successfully. Like the third one I mentioned, they believe that they can watch porn now and it's not going to really affect their future relationships. So we explain to them what is a supernormal stimulus. We try to explain to them that.
Explain a supernormal stimulus.
Okay, it's a phenomenon.
Phenomena.
Phenomena.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was discovered by a scientist called Nicholas Tinbergen quite a long time ago, in 60s, I believe. And he had been watching behavior of animals, instinctual behavior of animals. He was doing various experiments. I'll just mention maybe two. So he observed that if you've got a bird in a nest and the bird has got its own eggs there, if you take one of its little eggs and put in a bigger egg, the bird will prefer to sit on the bigger egg.
Right. Okay. Oh, yes, right, yes.
If you take that bigger egg and replace it with even bigger egg, remember those eggs were plastic, they were not real eggs. Yeah. The bird will always prefer to sit on the biggest egg. Even to the point when the bird can't even climb on the top of that egg. He will really try and strive to climb, and they will fall down from that egg, but he will insist sitting on the biggest egg because his parental instinct is so highly stimulated by this biggest egg.
Yeah.
And it will sit on that egg and will neglect its own natural eggs, and then obviously he will have not or she will have not little birds. Right. Right. So he had observed that little bird, well, the father and mother bird can't help it. The parental drive is just saying, sit on the biggest egg. And he did that, let's say, with butterflies. So he had observed that male butterflies will always follow the paper made up female butterflies, and they will neglect the natural butterflies.
Because the paper made up ones were brighter colored? Yeah.
I guess the funniest one is, I don't know if you know this, jewel beetles and beer bottles. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard this.
It's quite funny. This has been observed by different scientists a little bit later on. But they had observed in Australia that jewel beetles, they are these like big brown beetles.
Yeah.
And they had found them scattered all over beer bottles on the side of the road. So the scientists picked up the bottle and they were like looking at this beer bottle thinking, what on earth is happening? Why are those beetles sort of, holding on to the bottle? They couldn't shake them off. And then they realized that all of those beetles were males. And to their big surprise, they realized that all of those males are mating with the beer bottles. And so they, because they were scientists, they were like, whoa, what's going on here? So after some observation, they figured that those male beetles were attracted to the beer bottle because the beer bottle looked similar to their females with the color and structure.
Yeah.
So again, that beer bottle is like a supernormal stimulus.
Yes.
They will mate on the beer bottle on the strong sun and they will burn to death. Their sex drive was so stimulated they even overdrive their drive to preserve themselves.
Right. Holy crow.
And so pornography is that to us, is that beer
Uh-huh.
bottle to us, to human beings.
Right.
As human beings, we have the brains to recognize that.
Mhm.
You know, we have the prefrontal cortex, so
Mhm.
we should be able to rationally say, I should be able to rationally say, hey, Livia, stop. This is just a supernormal stimulus. This is not going to serve you any good. You don't have to watch it. But still, my drive will be stimulated.
So what could people, so you must teach them maybe a method of recognizing whether they have a problem with pornography or not. Yes?
Yes, first of all, they should recognize that it's a fake stimulus that our
Yeah.
brain finds difficult to defend itself against.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we speak to them a lot about then about the effects that it's going to have on their capacity to be intimate with a real human being.
Mm-hmm.
So we do different activities with them, but you know, if you ask them like, well, if you're gonna have a sexual intercourse with somebody, wouldn't you want them to be totally focused on you and you only? And they all say like, yeah. I was like, well, that's gonna happen if they've been watching porn, you know, let's say, because they will be bombarded with images from the pornography they've seen previously. So I'll say, well, if that would offend you, that your partner would be thinking of porn stars rather than you, like, why would you do that to your partner? So, you know, like, pornography is going to affect you. But they're young and they cutely arrogant. So they think they have more of a control over their brain than they really have.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how long does it take for someone to, say, have regular pornography use when they start becoming, as you would say, addicted to it? So unable to stop themselves from using it.
I guess it depends how often they view it. I'm not sure that there is like a time window how long it's going to take for them to be addicted.
Some people are addicted right away, and some people it takes a long
I think
time. That's true.
I think I should also mention that certain kids will have more of a predisposition to be addicted than others.
And have you looked at who those people might be?
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, so just like with other addictions, this is the same. Kids that are growing up in not very loving relationship with their parents.
So if they're lacking attention.
So if they striving, if they're lacking recognition from their parents, let's say, attention. If they are being humiliated at home, that will be adding to their predisposition to be addicted.
Right, and in the Alcoholics Anonymous dictum, it would be that they are looking for something in the world to fill a place inside them that feels empty.
Yeah. So I learned a lot from a therapist called Patrick Carnes. He's from the States. I'm not sure if he's.
How do you spell his name?
Patrick Carnes, Carnes. So he dedicated like all of his lives to sex addictions. I mean, he had written his books in 70s, 80s, 90s. So this is before the porn era, but still, he was addicted himself. What he had found that people that suffer from sex addiction, their main sort of engine behind their addiction is their deep sense of shame. It's the feeling that they're not good enough. They're not good as other people.
Right.
And that creates a really vicious circle, because if you watch porn, you're gonna feel ashamed at some point because of what you watch.
Yeah.
And because you feel ashamed, you're gonna go to something that brings that little bit of relief to you, and that's normally porn for porn addicts. So you kind of go round and round in this circle of watching porn, feeling shameful about it, and because you feel shameful about it, you need to relieve yourself from that horrible sense of shame, and you will go for watching more porn.
I see. Yeah.
It's like that. So we explain this to the kids, and then we try to explain to them that there is a way out of this horrible addiction cycle, and that is to connect to other human beings, truly connect to other human beings. If you feel addicted, I'm not saying it's impossible that you get out of addiction by yourself, but it's more likely that you will get out of addiction with help of other people.
Yeah.
That you have to open up to other people.
Yeah, right. And find out that you're not alone, pretty much, that there's lots of people that have this problem, and that they have found relief by speaking to each other and finding support from one another.
So we bring, so when you go into the classes, we do bring them sort of success stories.
Do you think it's an isolation problem?
I think so. I think just like any other addictions, I think it's, okay, so the stories I heard from sexaholics, I mean, most of them grew up in families where emotions were not shown. Sex was not talked about, or it was talked about in negative connotations. And most of them had no capacity of really connecting to friends or not, to anyone.
Right.
It was like all the connections were very sort of on superficial level.
Right.
And that will create this void, this emptiness in your heart.
Right.
And so they will be by themselves, frustrated, and watch porn.
And so in terms of the Alcoholics Anonymous program, then it's a spiritual program. And so do you bring that into your teaching, that's how you help them?
No, I wouldn't go, because I'm with kids just for 90 minutes.
Right.
I wouldn't, I have to choose what are the priorities I need to tell them. So I wouldn't go into exactly the 12 steps, what the 12 steps are, because I wouldn't have time for that. But I will tell them that there is such a group as Anonymous Sexaholics, and if need be, once you become adults, or if you know anyone who's addicted, here they are, and they are the group you could possibly join. And the nice little story is that I had been in a class with 15-year-olds, I think. And, I did my program, went home, and 3 years later, I went to open a meeting of Anonymous Sexaholics. And there was a young lady sitting there. I didn't remember her, but she said she is there because she had heard me speaking in the classroom. So
isn't that nice?
Yeah, it took her quite a long time to figure out that, yes, she really does have a problem, and yes, she really does need help.
But setting that information young gives them a chance to meditate on that as time goes by, as they are reflecting on their behavior, and that there is a way to go forward. So I think it sounds like it's a very useful program that you're setting up. So now you live in Slovakia, and so you work within the school system only, or do you do this outside the school system?
It's outside of school, so so I would have like a headmaster or a teacher of ethical studies, or a teacher of any class. They will just call us up and they will say, "Oh, we heard about your prevention programs. Would you like to come?" They normally call us when there is already a problem in the classroom. Like when you have like 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds watching porn during the school breaks. And the teachers are freaked out about it.
So the kids they can bring their phones to school?
Yeah, it's a big debate in Slovakia. Should we forbid them to do that? Yeah, at the moment, each school has its own rules. Some schools will say you can bring the phone, but it has to stay in the locker. Some say, it has to stay in a bag. Some say, we don't care. We just pretend we don't see you watching whatever you want.
Did you see Jonathan Haidt's talk yesterday?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, and he described 4, let's see, where is that?
4 steps that parents can do to,
yes.
I even wrote them down.
Yeah, I wrote them down too, somewhere here. But one of them was no social media until the kids are...
I think he said 16.
Or
even 18.
Or even 18. Yeah, and that only a flip phone up till then.
Yeah.
So only texting.
Yeah.
Only texting and telephoning.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah.
And I talked to my son. My son has 2 little kids. They're only 3 and 1. But he was there yesterday and he was listening. And he said that he and his wife have talked about it, and they think when their kids are old enough that they would get them an iPhone, because on there you can only text and phone. when I think you can get messages from your
On
email.
the little calling watch.
But there is nothing, there's no social media or anything on it. So they thought that might be an option rather than the flip phone. So then there's two ways, but absolutely no social media. Yeah. He said that I think suicidality and self-harm has gone up 200 to 300% between 2010 and 2015.
Yeah. I mean, that is not a coincidence.
No, it's not. And that's what he said too. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I
wonder if the prevalence for pornography use has also gone up at the same rate.
Well, kids got porn in their own pockets 24/7. I mean, what do we expect?
Yes, that's right.
We would expect like a 12-year-old kids who are starting to feel curious about sex. They're not going to watch porn when they got it in their pockets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, apart from doing programs with kids, we also go and speak to parents. And this is something I've been doing a lot over the last year, and it's so frustrating.
Okay, tell me about it.
Because in Slovakia anyway, most of kids have smartphones from about the age of 10. And after that, parents lose quite a bit of control over what they watch. So most of parents will not even put any parental locks on those phones. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how a parent can give a child smartphone without any parental
Yeah, they don't know what the
controls.
Smartphone is. I don't think they don't realize that it's a
they do.
it's a room
they use
full
it.
of
The parents use it.
It's a whole city of information. You know, it's the National Library. I mean,
I just don't get it. I mean, there is a lot of good stuff on the internet, but there is a lot of stuff that is not for children.
Yeah.
So to me, it's beyond me. And then the parents will say something like, "Oh well, if I limit my child." Let's say if I put the parental locks on my child's phone, or if I say to my kid, you can only view internet for, let's say, an hour a day, then my child will say, well, but my friends, they can, watch whatever they want, so all day long, and why should I be limited? And so I hear a lot from the parents, like, what shall we do? And I'm like, don't compare yourself to other parents, irresponsible parents. You are the one responsible. Like, you are the one who make choice if your child is going to be on the phone for 1 hour or 10 hours.
Yeah.
It's
and
like,
to
you
know
are the one.
that attention, I think attention is love.
Yeah.
And so if you're not giving your kids attention, if you're leaving them to these devices, then there's no love between you and your child. If you can stop them from using this, then you can give them attention again. And they'll learn that you love them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been thinking about love and attention for a year now. And I think that they're the same thing. Attention and love. Same thing.
Yeah. I was speaking to this priest the other day, and he was saying something along the lines like, you can say that I love you, but if you don't want to spend time with me, then then those words are empty. So it's the same for parents. Like, we as parents, we can say, of course we love our children, but if you're not gonna spend quality time with them, then those words are just empty.
Well, the thing is, parents are addicted to their phones too.
Yeah.
So right, so it's a crisis, really, I think. I mean, we have an international crisis, and we don't know what kind of changes that's creating in our world either, that people are spending so much time there, and social media, and I don't know, porn sites, I guess that's social media too, isn't that what it's called? So it's in that same, brutal.
I suggest we can do like a little tests in our own families, like abstaining tests.
Yeah.
For children to really understand what addiction is. You can start with sugar. You can set yourself up as a family, like, let's all of us quit sugar for just 1 week.
Right.
And see what happens. See
and
how
sugar
emotional.
is one of the most addictive things ever.
I know, but it's kind of like even young children are addicted on sugar. So all the family are going to understand and be able to observe each other and themselves. Well, how emotional you get if you can't eat sugar.
Yeah.
So after a week, you can sort of sit down together and say, like, oh my goodness, we all heavily addicted to sugar. And what else are we addicted to?
Yeah.
So you can quit your phones or just social media for a week and see how you feel. I think
yes.
this is something parents can do with kids if they want to if you want to explain what addiction is. And this is before you even start about talking about porn.
Yeah, that's right. I think Dave Rubin gives up his he doesn't go online at all for the month of August. And so I imagine he has 2 little babies. They will not be able to go online either, but I imagine he won't be given his kids phones. And I imagine that the more we talk about this, the people who are now having children will be much more mindful than we were. Although when I had kids, there weren't any smartphones, and we didn't let our kids use any computer at all until they could type properly. And you have to be a certain age before you can type. And so that was helpful. That was the goal they had to reach, was you had to be able to properly type.
Okay. Like properly
type.
Okay.
Yeah, none of this. You had to know where all the keys were and do it without looking at it. So we had to get a proficiency in typing.
Wow, that's a challenge.
It was a challenge. Yeah, it was a challenge. And then you could play Duck, Duck, Go or something, you could learn to play games.
I wonder what your kids said, like, oh, do I have to learn this? Is this worth it? Do I really want to play those games?
Oh, yeah. We used to also have Sunday meetings. Sunday meetings, the kids hated Sunday meetings. They wanted to be outside playing with their friends, and fair enough. But we would have a meeting at 4:00 on Sundays, and we would decide what the rules were and the jobs were for the next week. And it was funny because they both went off to university, and they had weekly meetings with their roommates to decide what the rules,
Well, your kids initiated those meetings.
Yep. Who was going to take out the garbage and who was going to clean the bathroom and all of that. Yeah. And so, it came in, it was useful to them later on, but they fought against it. But it didn't matter that they fought against it. It wasn't a long meeting. So it was uncomfortable, an uncomfortable half hour.
Okay. That had to be done.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so parents could even start with that. Like, they could decide, how long can we do this? Can we do it for half an hour?
Yeah.
And then make it longer and longer and longer.
I often meet this objection from parents, like they would even try to speak to their kids about sexuality, but kids are the ones who don't want that conversation. They will shy themselves away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Which I guess my advice would be to the parents to perhaps spend more time and don't even speak about sex yet. Just go and go for a trip. If you like fishing together, just go fishing. Just kind of grow near each other for a little while. Maybe do that for a month or 2 even.
Yeah.
Like meet your child regularly.
Go for a bike ride.
Yeah. Speak about whatever you want before you even open up such an intimate subject as sexuality or pornography.
Yeah.
What we learned from children from the survey that we asked them, who do you think should be the first person who speaks to children about intimacy, about all the the changes in the body during the adolescence and all of that. So 66% of children said that parents should be the ones, but if they can do it, that it's not unpleasant. And then we let them define what do you mean by like what is so unpleasant? Like how would you prefer parents speaking to the kids about these subjects? So that's quite fun because I heard like thousands of children talking about this, and they often say we don't speak about anything private at home. So I can't imagine that we would suddenly speak about sexuality.
Right. No.
So this is the thing, like spend time with your children, open up to your children as a human being.
Yes.
That you have your own struggles, you have your own doubts, you have
your
own frustrations.
Yes.
And then once you open up, perhaps you can hope that your child will listen once you start to speak about such a deep and intimate topic as sexuality.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the same with this gender dysphoria, that we can talk about our own time being 12 and 13 years old and how confused we were and the way we felt, any way we may feel shame or anything. We can talk about that and say that it is a very difficult period of time. And so we do need each other and we have to talk. Otherwise, you become isolated and and the choices you make on your own might not be the best for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tricky I'm sure adolescence, it's a tricky time for parents.
Yeah.
For all of the parents. So I'm sure it's not going to be easy for any of the parents to try to be near your children, because in that age, children are like, well, Mom, I don't need you. I know everything that I
know
should
everything.
know.
Yeah, I know. It's a time of renewed narcissism, isn't it? I know everything.
Yeah, like there's nothing new, Mom, that you could tell me. So why don't you just stay out?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
but it's worth trying, especially in the topic of sexuality, because I do think that children's sexuality is hijacked by porn industry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just such a
Wow,
shame.
eh?
It's just such a shame. Like all of us as parents, I hope, I don't think I'm naive when I say this, but all of us want children to grow up into beings that will enjoy fully their sexual intimacy with their partners, and that's not going to happen if they stay with porn.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they will prefer porn over their partners.
Oh yeah, and
that's
being addicted to anything is isolating. It takes you away from your relationships if you're spending time with your addiction rather than looking for the next right thing that you can do for someone or with someone. And I find in my spiritual program that the best days I have are when I'm paying attention in the present and looking for the next right thing I can do when I'm with people. And if I can find something that I can do that's helpful, my day is much better. And then you don't feel that isolation anymore. You don't feel shame for not being the person you could be. Yeah.
I think all of these support groups that have this truth they keep telling each other, I think they say opposite of every addiction is connection.
Yeah.
Opposite of every addiction is connection.
Yeah, right.
So the more connected you are to other human beings, the less likely you are to be addicted to whatever.
Yeah. I just did a podcast with a mother and her daughter. Her daughter's 14 now. It was an audio podcast because they stayed anonymous. But when she was 10, she was put into one of these gender clubs in school with her other friends, and they were told to choose a pronoun within the school from the teacher that set up the club. And for 6 months, she was a boy at school, but they didn't tell the parents. This is happening in Canada, that they didn't tell the parents what they were doing. They told the children that their parents wouldn't understand, that they would be transphobic. And so, but all the people at school would support them. And so this is what she did. And finally, she came home and told her mother. And her mother was very supportive of her and told her how confused she was as a child, as a 10 or 12-year-old, and told her of her own eating disorder, which she had hesitated to talk about because it was so difficult for her. She didn't want to put this on as maybe another thing that she might do, but she shared it with her. And over time, because of her vulnerability and her humility of talking with her daughter thought she was just transphobic. She couldn't hear anything her mother said. She was so engrossed in what was going on with her peer group. And I don't know if in pornography, if it's completely private or if there's a peer group.
So boys are more likely to say that they are being pressured to watch porn than girls.
They will what?
More pressured.
Yes.
Like more pushed, more expected to watch porn than girls.
Okay.
We did ask this in our survey.
Yeah, because this has really pushed this gender, trying to make changes surgically and hormonally with kids. And she was about to start with hormones and surgery, and she went home to tell her mother, but her mother gave her space, so she was meditating on what it would be like to grow up to be a man, and it started to make her feel sick. And then one morning she got up and thought, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. And she was so embarrassed that maybe she's actually a girl. She was
embarrassed about being a girl.
Yeah, she was so embarrassed that she had been 6 months in this delusion of, with all of these other kids, and they give each other positive reinforcement and everything. And she was afraid to go back to school and to face them and to tell them that she had decided that she was going to step back from this ideology. But now she's 2 years older and she's happy. She told me she was happy and going to art school. And when I met her, she was in this, and she was hunched over and wearing baggy clothes and wouldn't look at anybody. And now she's standing up straight and forthright, and she's communicating. So now she's back in her family.
So you think what helped that young girl is the fact that her mom just became not just mom, but like a human being to her?
Yes, I think so. I think it was
her
really
mom stepped away from the parental role and just became...
She just walked with her and tried to listen and was open to her being with her and talking to her. She just stayed. She said even though she was rebuked for months, she just kept on being open to the conversation, and eventually it happened. They did take her out of that school and moved to a smaller community. They moved their whole family away, which also helped, I think, because then she was not in that situation anymore. But I did that little podcast because I thought it might be helpful to parents.
I wonder why girls are ashamed of being girls. I find that quite difficult to understand. I mean, because I'm so involved in the porn effects. I imagine that if, let's say I was 12 years old and I started to be interested in sex and I watched porn, I think I wouldn't want to develop into a woman. I wouldn't want to be that thing that is being degraded on screen.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it's a big problem. This pornography, it's everywhere. So, yeah. Well, I haven't talked to anybody but you about this, so I haven't thought about it. Do you think so? I mean, yeah.
I mean,
it makes you feel shameful.
If half of the girls watch pornography regularly, so imagine, and if the average age of first contact with porn is at the age of 11.
Right.
So this is like before your body really starts changing. Like, I don't see that as really far-fetched. Imagining that young girl watching porn thinking, I don't want to develop into a woman. I don't want to experience what those women are experiencing, because a lot of porn is just really degrading women. So, I don't know. I can imagine that, a lot of girls will be like, not having that. I prefer to be male, but that's just it's not supported by any. No, but from your experience, it's just my perspective. That seems very logical.
Yeah, right. Well, with social media, the social media companies have some responsibility in this because they aren't monitoring the people on social media who are narcissists and sadists. They're not they're not stopping them. They allow them just to say whatever they want, and we don't know exactly what to do about that, but something has to be done about it, because it's a pretty vile world.
We do this little activity with kids. This is with younger kids, 13-year-olds. We put these papers up on the wall, and there is a question on each paper. And one of the papers, the question is, how do you think children meet pornography for the first time? Like, in what context?
Yeah.
And I've done this with thousands of children, and they will normally name social media, literally names of the social media. This is where we met.
Oh.
The porn for, like TikTok.
Yeah.
Different social media. So, you give your child a phone, and your little girl is gonna say, "Can I have a TikTok account?" If she even asks you, she might not even ask you. And that's a sure way she's going to meet porn very soon, or someone's going to ask her for some nude photos soon enough.
Yeah, and then because there's OnlyFans.
Yeah,
and I don't know a lot about OnlyFans, but I know that women have accounts, and they make quite a few people on OnlyFans make a lot of money.
Yeah, a
very few. Yeah. And the rest of them, I don't know what the incentive would be.
I think they just hope that they will be one of the few.
Right. Right.
Which I find incredible. But you have you could have a normal everyday girl in your city that will be on OnlyFans she'll have an account and she'll be stripping every night for a group of people.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I know I'm adult, so I think the way adults think.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it difficult to imagine what 18-year-old girl would think. Why
Well, they're
would she
obsessed with
establish?
sex. That's for sure.
It's just there is so much consequences. Like you're gonna one day want to close your OnlyFans account, and then you're gonna go around the city and people will recognize you. They will see you in the most private positions.
Yeah. When I was 22, I worked as a model in an art class and took off my clothes.
Yeah.
First time I was so nervous. I was so nervous, but I really wanted to be an artist, and I needed some money, so I thought I'd work as a model and find out what this was all about.
Yeah.
And they were drawing me, and it seemed okay. But I thought, someday someone's going to recognize me. And one day I was on a bus, and a postal worker got on the bus, and he said, "Oh, hi, I didn't recognize you with your clothes on." And I thought, yeah, I knew that would happen eventually, that's what would happen. So, and that was just an in-person art class.
Well, at least that was, I would say, for a nice purpose, for
life drawing.
Life drawing.
Life
I used to
drawing.
do love life drawing.
I love life drawing.
Yeah.
I love life drawing. I eventually became an artist instead of an art model, but I did model through my university career. Yeah. But that's just for, at the most maybe 20 people. When you're online, who knows how many and in what parts of the world. So.
And still, when you look at, because I used to do love light drawing, like when I had a nude body in front of me, I wouldn't necessarily think of them sexually.
No,
I would be looking at the beauty of a human shape. And
it's very difficult. Yeah.
Well, maybe I could. I had the capacity of detaching the erotic side from the beauty.
Yes.
So I would look at a woman or a man in front of me, and I would draw them, and they would be beautiful, and I would draw them because they're beautiful.
Yes.
But pornography is made for the purpose of arousing the viewer.
Yeah.
And for the purpose of trying to get the viewer's money.
Yeah.
So it does have a very different.
Yeah, very manipulative, a very manipulative industry. So do you have anything further that you'd like to share with me that you can think of that you haven't said yet?
No, I don't think so. It feels like I've been speaking to you for 2 hours.
Oh, does it? Oh.
I can't think of anything. I'm sure I'll think of something once we finish. I'll like, oh, damn, why didn't I mention this or that?
Well, that's the same when you first gave your first talk, right?
Yeah.
You thought, oh, no, there's something else I have to say, so I have to do it again.
Yeah.
But I really want to thank you for coming on my podcast. We have to talk about these things, whether we want to or not. I just put out a podcast this morning about navigating death and dying. There's things we have to talk about. We have to talk about the difficult conversations so that we can be helpful. When something comes up, then we won't be afraid and run away. That's not helpful.
No. I guess my last words would be to the parents, like if you're a parent and you want your child to grow up with a beautiful sense of what sex is, you can't be quiet. You as a parent can't be quiet. You do have to proactively explain to the child that sex is beautiful. Otherwise, it's going to learn from the porn industry. There isn't any other way. So be proactive.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.